Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new podcast. And actually, today I'm super excited about my guest. He's a man who has lived through a very interesting life. He gained a lot of, let's say, life experience through the journey. So I'm super excited that he will be able to share this with you today. And his name is David Golding, and I'm gonna use this little friend to introduce him because I don't want to miss out on anything. So David Golding was a C-suite executive with over 35 years of a varied business strategy and operational expertise. And as a self-funded entrepreneur, he created over 100 UK companies that successfully turned over more than $2 billion in 10 years. He's also a recovered alcoholic and recovered gambling addict who now works as a recovery mentor, certified recovery coach, and sober companion. David, welcome.
Bless you. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, is that me? Yeah, I think it is. I think it is.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me on board.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be doing this with you.
Bless you.
And as we were discussing before, I think you have a very unique story to tell and a very unique perspective. So for anyone that does not know anything about you or your life story, I would actually like to start the podcast with that. Just if you could share with us a bit about your life story and how addiction actually played part of it.
Gosh, I'll try and shorten it because it's, a 58-year story now. So I was born in Canada, but I grew up in a small town in the UK, in Somerset. It's a little seaside town. And in this seaside town, there was a building called the Pavilion. And in the 1970s, it was full of Space Invaders and fruit machines. And I remember at 7 years old, I used to gamble, even at seven. And I was stealing money from my parents, spending all my pocket money. So that was the first time, I think, that I got this exhilaration. And there's no doubt about it that I was an addict from the very beginning.
Yeah.
You know, I'd go there after school and every weekend and all the summer holiday. And I think it wasn't just the flashing lights, it was the idea I might win some money. And I remember that. So it was stealing money to enjoy the exhilaration of potentially winning money. I started drinking at 11. So I'm actually nearly 2 meters tall. And at 11 years old, I was stick thin, but I could go to the pub. And even at that age, I was drinking to get drunk. And I think that I found in my early teenage years that alcohol helped me get over anxiety. So that's social anxiety. You know, I was a really timid boy, stick thin, ginger, and I was a little bit bullied at school. And human interaction just didn't come naturally to me. I wasn't comfortable. I always felt a bit of an alien.
Yeah.
So where my friends were all popular, I just wasn't. I just didn't have that skill. So I always felt on the outside. Yeah, alcohol, give me 4 drinks. I'm the funniest guy there. I can talk to women. And I was a completely different person.
Yeah.
And I think that that was the first taste, literally, of trying to be a different person. Because normal David, sober David, he didn't like himself. He didn't understand the world and how he fitted into it. Now that feeling of not fitting in stayed with me all my life. And it didn't matter that I went to university, I studied nuclear physics, I got a job working in the military, writing software for missile systems, or moved into banking, but all the way through, I was always a drinker. So at university, drinking to excess. First job, drinking to excess. And it was always there. And it didn't matter where I went. I lived in Switzerland and Sweden, I lived in the USA, got a green card. I was a big drinker. So I was that guy that said, oh, I like to work hard and play hard.
Yeah.
But I meant that. Play hard for me meant drinking to oblivion, drinking to blackout. And because I had no off button, there is no stop button with me. I have the disease of more. It doesn't matter what it is, you know, whether it's drinking, cocaine, gambling, chocolate. You know, if you said to me tomorrow, David, let's go and play bowling, crown green bowling.
Yeah.
Never done it before. I'd probably go and buy all the balls, the bags, the shoes.
Yeah.
You know, I'd become addicted to that.
Like obsessive, right?
It's an obsessive-compulsive disorder. Yeah, completely obsessive, which is amazing because I've got a brain that thinks mathematically and logically.
Yeah.
Great in business, so I could come up with lots of ideas and commit and work harder than anybody else, you know, non-stop from 7 in the morning till 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then sleep 4 hours and then do it again, 7 days a week. So where other people are working 40 hours a week, I'm doing triple that.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of the success. Think differently, think quickly, assimilate information. So it meant that as a workaholic, I was successful. There was some luck involved, but when I was 42, I quit my job. I was a successful senior project manager in banking. I'd worked around the world, and I started my own company. And I literally quit. I just got divorced, and I put £110,000 on my credit cards.
Yeah.
Now, look, how's that for gambling? I'm just going to give it a go. Because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? It'll just fuck up and I'll end up with nothing, okay? I'll just gamble everything I've got. And it worked. And in that first year, we turned over £33 million, and I was away. I bought my first Ferrari 16 weeks after I began. The money was just rolling in, and that just fueled the next 10, 15 years. There was a decade where I was completely insane because I had enough money to do what I wanted. Mm-hmm. The trouble is, I don't do what I need, I do what I want. In addiction, by the way.
Yeah.
So in active addiction, I had enough money to go and do exactly what I wanted, when I wanted. Fuck the consequences. If I want to get a private jet and go to Monte Carlo, I'll do that. And I'll take all my friends because I was trying to buy friends. And I just lived this ridiculous life of excess. McLarens, Ferraris, yachts, helicopters. Look, have I got some nice memories of that time? Of course I have. I've got events, little snapshot memories.
Yeah.
But that's sort of what they are, because the bulk of it I don't remember. And actually the bulk of it I was unhappy. I was miserable. Money's great. It gives you choices. I make bad choices. Give me a lot of money and I'm just insane. Yeah. So it was always a thread. There was always addiction. I always had the disease of more. No stop button. And it took me to suicide. It took me, in the end, I lost everything. I lost my company. I've been divorced twice. I wasn't somebody who could quit like that and realize what I needed to do. I raged against that.
So for anyone, we're going to discuss about addiction, of course, quite a lot, but for anyone listening and hearing your story about your financial success, and thinking that money will bring them additional happiness. What are your thoughts on this?
Gosh, it's for somebody who's had it all and lost it, money doesn't bring happiness. It does bring choices. There's no doubt about that. You've got the choice to, I want to fly to Dubai from England. Well, I can go first class. And actually, if I'm going to Mallorca, I'll get a private jet. Yeah. Now, that's great. But sat there in your gold Rolex, that's not going to give you happiness. I think I've come to realize that happiness really is in here, and it comes from peace, being at peace. And I remember when I went to rehab in 2019, when I finally found sobriety, and the therapist, she was called Jill, she's wonderful, because I'd met her 3 times, by the way. I met her in 2009, 2014, and again in 2019. And she said to me, David, what do you want? And I said, I want peace. Because I'd spent a lifetime running away, a lifetime being scared, and a lifetime trying to fill the hole in my soul with drugs, gambling, money and possessions and relationships and anything and everything to paper over the cracks that actually I didn't know who I was. I wasn't ever really happy. And every time I was smiling, it was a lie. There was a mask. How are you, David? I'm great. Are you? Yeah. No, I'm not great.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear. And it's a famous actor, Ben Affleck. He also struggled with alcohol addiction for a lot of years. And he said that cure for addiction is suffering. So you suffer enough that something inside of you says, I'm done. Yeah. So I'm interested to know, what was that moment for you?
That's really interesting. I love this concept, because for many years when I was trying and failing, so I went to rehab in 2009, okay, for alcohol. Kept it a secret that I was a massive cocaine taker. I wasn't going to tell them that. And I'm in and out of rehab for a decade and failing. And I would go to AA meetings, and then I would stop, and Cocaine Anonymous meetings. And the people that I knew in those fellowships, they would say to me, David, have you not had enough pain yet?
Yeah.
Because I think the concept that if you've had enough pain, there's the moment where you say, I'm done. I'm done with the consequences. I'm done with the pain. I think for me, there was another level. I had the pain, That wasn't enough. And I've now come to realize that the missing piece for me was hope.
Oh.
I didn't believe that I was capable of getting clean and sober. I didn't believe I was worthy. And there was almost a self-destructive streak in me that hated myself so much. But there was also many other reasons. But for me, really, it was hope. And finally, I think, I then began to identify with other people. You know, at the beginning, when I first went, you know, I'm this multimillionaire, I'm completely different, I'm rich and famous, you know, you're a loser.
Yeah.
You're a heroin addict. Get
Yeah.
away from me. You know, actually, we all suffer from addiction, and it just shows how ill I was at the time to judge people like that, for me to say I'm better than you. But look where it left me, you know, for 10 years struggling. And it was only, I think, when I surrendered, and I do this, we drop hands when we surrender. And that moment of surrender is the most important. But for me, actually, there was a moment where it triggered me to go into rehab. And actually, in 2019, I mean, I'm happily married to my wife, Christina. She's amazing. I'd be dead without Christina. But at the time, our marriage was on the rocks. My behavior was just appalling. We'd split up. I was living in a house on my own. And the house was empty. I just moved into it. I'd left the marital home. And my two eldest sons, I asked them to come round on a Saturday night because I couldn't bear to be on my own. And my sons came round. I got loads of booze. When they were there, I then bought 10 grams of cocaine. I racked up some lines in the kitchen and said to my sons, you will not be a man unless you know how to take cocaine. And that's making my hands sweat, that I was capable of saying that to my young sons. And they looked at me and they left. And I was so devastated, mortified, that that's what I'd said. I actually went out to hang myself. And I don't mind admitting that there was a voice that said, don't kill yourself. You know what to do. Go to rehab and get well. So I think for me, there was an emotion associated with that. And that emotion for me was disgust. I was so disgusted with myself. And look, that's my journey. You know, I had a decade of disgust, but there was still that one moment. And I think for many of us, there's got to be that one moment. You know, there's the day where you change.
Yeah.
And I can remember that moment and how it felt. But for me, hope's really important. And it doesn't matter how much you drink. If you want to quit, you've got to believe that you can get well. You've got to believe that you can put it down. And we were talking before, for me, you know, getting into recovery and changing who you are, it's 1% putting down the drink and drugs. It's 99% changing who you are.
Yeah.
And I needed that. David Golding version 1 was a fuck up. You know? He drove past in his McLaren and I waved. But I was a fuck up. And I hated myself and I didn't want to live that life any longer.
In that moment of disgust, right, that you felt, did you at the same time also feel hope, or did that come afterwards during the rehab?
It came afterwards. And I think that moment where it felt like everything was lost, you know, like there was nothing left.
Yeah.
I destroyed my relationship with my sons. I was split up from my wife. I'm in rehab again for the 3rd time in 10 years. Okay, so now that you can call that my rock bottom, if you like.
Yeah.
That was the moment where everything's gone. You know, what else is there? Actually, there's only one choice, which is to start to put the work in. So then, with new ears, you know, this is a story I'd heard for 10 years, but suddenly with new ears, I started to seriously listen to the people that were getting well. In fact, the 5 years before, there was a gentleman who was in there with me, a guy called Stuart, a really lovely guy. So we were both in there in 2014. I went out and went back into the madness. He got it. And when I went back in 2019, he was there, giving away his time. And he was a peer supporter at the rehab, which I am now. I still volunteer there. And I saw him and I looked up to him and thought, gosh, actually he got it. Why did he get it and why didn't I get it? Gosh, that must mean it's possible. And I really trust and like this guy. He's a good guy. And I know how ill he was, and he was an alcoholic. And I thought, do you know what? Maybe it's true. Maybe maybe recovery is possible.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me. That was the hope.
That was the hope.
That somebody I knew, that I trusted, was telling me, yeah, David, it's true. Come on in. The water's lovely, you know. What you got to do is some work. It's not going to be easy, but you can do it. And then I started to believe. And then I started to do the work. And they're bloody right, you know. You can change. You can change the way you think. You can change how you feel. You can learn new behaviors. You can drop it all and become somebody different. So I've said it before, David Golding version 1 didn't work. This is David Golding version 2. There's still little bits of him in there, and I've got to work on those bits. But there's been a wholesale change, you know?
Yeah.
A fundamental change in my outlook and reaction to life is really what's happened.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think it's, for a lot of people that will be listening to this, I think it's a bit mind-blowing that you're able to gain such a big financial success, got into many different relationships with your wife, ex-wife. So would you consider yourself that you are a functional alcoholic? Or what do you think about this term, actually, functional alcoholic?
Yeah, okay. I understand it, and I think I agree with it. There is a period of time where you can function. Okay, so functioning, what does that really mean? It means to me getting away with it. Okay, so there were long periods of time where I could get away with it. So let's go back to the period of time where I had control of my drinking. Yeah. And I know when that was. I left university, I'm in my first job, I'm 22. And I was still a university-type drinker. And I would do that while I was in my first job. A few weeks into my first job, my boss said to me, David, you don't come in on Mondays. You know, we've noticed. I know, really? So he said, you know, unless you can turn up every day, we're going to get rid of you. Okay. So at that point, I thought, shit, I don't want to lose my job. And I could do that. So I stopped drinking on a Sunday, and I didn't drink until Friday and Saturday. Now, the brakes were off then. You know, I deserved it. Yeah. And it was oblivion, you know, and I would just drink and drink and drink to black out and fall over and do all those things. But then on a Sunday, I still had the control to be able not to do that. Then there was the day where I had absolutely no control and I was drinking every day and I was taking drugs. So somewhere in between, there was the moment. But in those years in between, I was functioning. So I could go to work and, you know, it's peaks and troughs, good days, bad days, and there might be a period where everything's great for a week. Yeah. And I could turn up every day, have important meetings, make a difference, get in a plane, fly to somewhere and have important meetings and do it. And then there might be an incident where then I wouldn't turn up for 3 days. Now, in the meantime, the chief exec and a few other people are filling in for me. But the number of times they had to fill in got more and more often. And the number of times that they probably grew tired of me became more and more often. So I think this notion of functioning, I think it's getting away with it. It's faking it, let's be honest. You know, I was an alcoholic and I couldn't stop drinking and the consequences were horrific. But I still managed to hold down running the companies, but I wasn't always running the companies. You know, if I'd been employed, I'd have been out. There's no doubt about it. It was only because I owned my own company. You know, maybe that's why I did it, you know. I've not really thought about it like that.
Yeah, interesting. What do you think are some of the old beliefs about alcohol that you had and that you had to change through recovery?
Yeah, okay. I'll sum up the first one, okay? Alcohol's not my friend. Quite simply, alcohol is not my friend. And I say that to people in early recovery, actually. We get this fear of how am I going to explain to people that I don't drink anymore? You know, because there's stigma and people say, oh, come on, David, you're a big drinker. So I would say that, actually. And it was my way of opening the door. I wouldn't go straight in, oh, I can't drink, I'm an alcoholic and it's all terrible. I would say, no, alcohol's not my friend. And then they would do one of two things. They would either say, okay, because they know what you mean and they don't want to go there. Yeah. Or they'd say, oh, really? What do you mean? And I'd say, well, when I say it's not my friend, I've got no stop button. If I have one, I'll have 1,000, then I'll die. And they go, oh, okay. And that was the end of that. So I think fundamentally to realize that this, you know, we see people talking about it. It's a drug and this, that, and the other. You know, it's legal. But what it does is damage your body and your brain and all those things. But for most of my life, I thought it was my friend. It allowed me to do things that I couldn't do as David without alcohol. So I think fundamentally I wanted to get that in my locker. You know, and I think that that's fundamental to some of the work that I do with my clients, which is, so for example, there's a whole mindset change about alcohol. Let's be really clear about that. And at the beginning, I want you to go through and look at the consequences, because that will teach you something. Yeah. Honestly look at the consequences. And I'll give you an example, okay, because you can change your mindset to it, and you have got that in your locker. So let's say that you're a big drinker, okay? But for some reason, you're finding that acceptable. Somewhere in you, you haven't labeled it so awful that you won't do it. Well, I want to teach you that. Why don't you take heroin? You don't take heroin because you've labeled it bloody awful.
Yeah.
Let's label alcohol bloody awful, why don't we? So let's begin like that. So probably I could talk so long about some of the other things, but I think fundamentally that. Let's just begin with that. Everyone can get this. Alcohol's not your friend. If you want to sit in front of me and tell me that it is, I'd love to hear your explanation. Come on, you tell me. You tell me what it's doing for you.
Yeah.
Any positive example of what it's doing for you. Okay, so if you say, okay, it really does help me get over anxiety, I suggest that we work on something else to get over your anxiety. It makes me funny. No, it probably makes you an arsehole. Forgive me. But
yeah.
I don't think that there's the social bit, but you and I, we go out and have great social nights and I'm drinking Diet Coke.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's all the bullshit, really.
Yeah. I feel like all these quote-unquote benefits of alcohol, of being more social, talkative, funny, or to relieve stress are all bullshit, like you said.
Yeah.
One thing maybe that you really can't feel without alcohol is just that feeling of being completely obliterated, right? But if you're actually craving for that, that's a sign of a bigger problem, I would say.
Oh, yeah. Look, absolutely. Because you're drugging yourself.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So for example, some people say, for me to get a really good night's sleep, I need a nightcap. That's accepted. Hey, let's have a little nightcap.
Yeah.
Well, look, if you go and have a look at Andrew Huberman, there's some interesting podcasts about the science of sleeping and what alcohol does. And it's a sedative. It knocks you out. Now, that's what it's doing. That's not sleep. That's being knocked out. And also it affects your REM sleep. Actually, you end up waking up more often. The quality of sleep is worse. People that drink and go to sleep have 50% lower growth hormone. I could talk about it for ages. So, it's not working. That's a bullshit excuse.
Yeah.
And again, on the scale of how much drinking you do, it's just going to get worse and worse. The more you drink, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
But actually, by the way, there's one other thing. It's not the fact that you drink or not. There's actually now really good studies about how you drink. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So drinking a lot regularly, it's pretty bad for you if you drink too much. If you binge drink, that has other consequences. So binge drinking brings more toxins into your blood, and you get something called leaky gut. And leaky gut affects all sorts of other things. So now it's not just whether you drink a lot or not, it's how you go about drinking it. So people might say, well, I only go out one night a week, but I drink a week's worth in one night.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that's probably worse for you. So all these management methods to manage my alcohol consumption. So that's the control and management of alcohol. If you're somebody who's already got to the stage where you actively think about the management and control of your alcohol consumption,
it's a sign, right?
It's a sign.
Yeah.
You're on the slippery slope, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
someone with zero problems with alcohol would never question themselves, do I have a problem with alcohol, right?
Yeah, and they wouldn't hide it in the house. And they wouldn't go and do pre-drinks, and they wouldn't go to the bar in a round of drinks and buy an extra one.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was when I was in active addiction would be, let's say we go out in the evening, there's 6 of us. Come on, everybody, it's shots time. I'd buy 10 shots.
Yeah.
Rack them up on the bar. Give one to the barman. Come on, you're going to be involved. It's a party. Come on, everybody. Oh, look, there's 2 left over. Wallop, wallop. So I was always the guy buying the shots because I wanted to be in control of how much everyone was drinking so that my drinking was hidden.
Yeah.
That's that manipulation and control.
Before you were telling me about, it's the first time I heard it, about a double-double.
A double-double, yeah. Well, look, there's not enough. If I buy me a gin and tonic, now I wanted a double. Well, actually, it got to the point where a double wasn't enough either. If I'm going to the bar and I buy one double, wallop. So I'd say, just give me a double-double. That's 2 doubles in a glass. And people would say, well, I can't do that. You can't have 4 in one glass. I'd say, okay, well, double-double then. Give me 2. And then he'd turn his back and I'd pour it in one glass. So You know, the other things I used to do to get more, I bought a wine glass that was a bottle of wine glass. I bought a glass that was a pint of gin and tonic. It was just insanity.
Insanity, yeah.
And somewhere in my mind, I'd tricked myself that was okay. Gosh.
Would you say, due to the fact that I would say you're a very intelligent man, and also if you look at your experience with your studies, business, professional background, would you say that due to the fact that you're, we can say, very smart, does that even worsen your addiction, or did it help you out when you decided to stop and go through recovery?
Gosh, that's a great question. I've never been asked that. I think it's a hindrance because you end up trying to outthink it. You sit there and think, I can rationalize this and I can think my way through this.
Yeah.
I can plan my way through this. Because the antithesis of that is this crazy thing to say, which is, do you know who the happiest man in the village is? The happiest man in the village is the village idiot. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm not being intellectually non-politically correct, but let's be honest. You know, having a mind that overthinks, and that's what a lot of people who end up in addiction, they have this overthinking mind.
Yeah.
You know, my mind would destroy itself. It would turn on itself and overthink itself, and that constant rumination. So in my 20s, 30s, 40s, the only way to stop that was to drink.
To drink.
And recognizing that that was what was going on, but I had no way out, no solution, and to drink. And then, you know, there's something else that people ask me, you know, why did you become an alcoholic, David, or an addict? And I think I've come up with a 3-word answer. And the answer is, I trained myself. The habit, every day, day in, day out, reaching for the glass, reaching for the bag, you know, gambling. Whenever something was going on, I would reach for something to soothe myself. Yeah. Well, look, you do that often enough. You know, you're going to train yourself. You're going to be a bloody expert. You know, Malcolm Gladwell, I've done my 10,000 hours and I am the best expert of reaching for a glass automatically. And that's one of the ways that we work to unravel that in recovery. I'll give you better habits.
So now, including yourself, but also now with your clients, do you help them out to rebuild their new, let's say, more healthy habits?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think fundamentally, there's the first one, which is about hope and an understanding about alcohol's not your friend. That's part of what we do. The other one is about habits. So let's just briefly talk about that. Yeah. You can't break a habit. Now, I believe you can't break a habit. Okay, you can stop doing it, but this notion of snapping it in two, that so that it no longer exists. And you know, you learned as a child to ride a bicycle. Okay, and at the beginning, you're using your prefrontal cortex. You're actively thinking about it. Yeah. So you're balancing. So first of all, your father might or your mother might push you along, and you're steering. Once you've got that in the back of your mind, in the cerebellum, then you start to pedal. And then you might learn to go around corners. And before you know it, you're riding on your own. Mm-hmm. I can't teach you to unlearn how to ride a bicycle. It's in there.
It's in there, yeah.
It's never going anywhere. Now, if you've got an alcoholic bike that you tend to get on and cycle off into the sunset in the wrong direction and over a cliff, probably. But if that's if that's what you've got, I can't teach you to unride the bike, unlearn how to ride the bike. But I can say, leave it against the wall. Any time that you feel like you want to have a drink, do something else. Let's get a better habit. Let's get some awareness about it. First of all, let's recognize that this bike is not helpful. This habit is not helpful. Because if you still keep some little thing, I call it the spider door. Okay, so in recovery, I'm trying to build a wall around you, this wall of safety, so that you don't do this thing anymore, whether it's gambling, alcohol, cocaine, or whatever. You build this solid wall of defenses, of techniques and, you know, things to do. Yeah. You'll leave a little spider door at the bottom of it that's big enough for a spider to crawl through. And over time, that door's going to get big enough, and one day you'll just stroll through. And that's why people relapse. They begin their recovery journey. I suspect they left a little spider door, that little seed of doubt to say, well, I'll do this for 3 months and maybe I can drink like a gentleman. So for me, it's fundamental. You can't drink like a gentleman. You've passed the Rubicon. You can't control drinking. It's not your friend. Let's build a new habit. So that for me is all about what we work on together. Fundamental. But for me, there's a lot of brain chemistry. There's a lot of understanding what the brain does to help us understand why. You know, I'm this scientist guy. I want to know why.
Yeah.
Faith is great, and I've got lots of faith, but I still want to know why. You know, why is it like that, Ben? Why do I do that? You know, again, and so that answer, you know, I trained myself. Probably the best answer I've got.
I like that. I trained myself, and alcohol is not my friend.
No.
I think these are like the key messages. Have you ever contemplated what would happen if we would drink one beer right now?
There's absolutely no way on God's earth I would do that. There's nothing that you could do or say to make me have a drink. But let's imagine that we did. I know what would happen. Well, firstly, I know that my sobriety is out the window. Mm-hmm. So everything is lost. Everything that I've ever worked for is lost. The person that I am today is dead and gone. I've gone back to the guy that I hated. So for me, the crushing defeat of that would be so overwhelming, I suspect that I would die. I certainly wouldn't be able to have one and come back for that. If I had one drink, imagine what I'd feel like tomorrow. There's just no option. But actually, it's not that I don't drink because I'm scared. At the beginning, there was fear, and I think it's good to have some fear because I know what the consequences are. But now, I just know I don't want to do that. There's just no benefit. You may as well ask me, David, do you want to try some heroin? No, I'm not fucking doing it. No.
Yeah.
No. Just fundamentally in my brain, I know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I've learned more than enough. I've seen the evidence. You know, I'm an evidence guy, this scientist. And I think finally I got enough of my own evidence. I couldn't be told. You could give me 1,000 books. Like I said, I tried to outthink it. And I would read books, but they didn't apply to me. And I could see other people getting well, but they didn't apply to me because they're not me. I think it was you couldn't tell me until I experienced all of it myself, which is a real shame. Because some people can get clean and sober by being told.
Being told, yeah.
You know, and I never had the power to commit and do that. And it's not willpower, by the way. I don't mean that. But there's a magic for the people that can quit before it's too late. Okay, so I know somebody who managed to do that. He sat right in front of me.
Yeah.
You know, so that moment that you could do that before it became unstoppable. There was another thing that I wanted to say. That notion of having one and carrying on and having more.
Yeah.
You know, that's the reaction that happens to me. I have one and it goes. And I imagine this button, and it's got written on this button, start avalanche.
Boom.
If I press that, you're not stopping this avalanche, it's going now. And I tell you what, it's going to take houses, children, cars. That's what me having one drink, start avalanche. There's nothing stopping it. That's how it feels for me. So that's healthy up there, I know. And for the first year or so, that was probably really good to remember.
Yeah.
Now I don't need to remember. It's just in me. It's in my DNA. You know, it's part of those healthy thinking habits now that I've got.
How difficult or easy was to then actually stop drinking, doing cocaine, stop gambling, after you had that moment of disgust? Was that a difficult process afterwards, or was that the process where you realized there is nothing else I can do and I have hope, so let's go for it?
Yeah, there was the let's go for it because I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know actually now, I've got the evidence to suggest that if I don't do this and I don't get this, I'm screwed, I'm a dead man. Okay, so that's great. You know, that's great to have in your locker, which is you better do this or you're dead. You know, you're going to lose your wife, you're going to lose everything. I think the difficulty around it, so look, there's the commitment there. So there's that surrender. Have I surrendered? How big's my spider door? I haven't got one. I'm in. I'll do everything that you tell me. Okay, so then that's okay. And then you begin. I think the difficulties come in doing what I teach my clients, and I call it emotional archaeology. Okay, you go digging. Because I needed to know the bits of David that didn't work. Okay, so I already explained socially, I was emotionally immature and socially immature. I was impatient and intolerant and unkind and unloving and vengeful and angry and all those things. So I needed to learn how to do those. I'll give you an example. Impatience, okay? Mr. Impatient, always impatient, and I had enough money and I'll just buy it. You know, I'm super, super impatient. Okay, so what can I do about that? Well, okay, maybe I'll pray to God and say, God, give me patience and give it to me now. Right, well, it doesn't work like that. You know, my God, because I do have a faith, is not a God in the clouds. It's just my understanding of a higher power and a God. It's important to me. He gives me opportunities in which to learn patience. And if I get frustrated because things keep coming up again and again, it's because I haven't got it yet. You know, if I stop being intolerant, if I've learned tolerance and now I'm no longer intolerant, well, I won't get any more examples because they just don't, then I'm tolerant now. So I had to learn all these things. So that wholesale change of character started with changing my thinking. We change our thinking and it changes our feelings because we behave on our feelings. Okay, so Mr. Angry, okay, gets involved in a road rage, okay, and he gets out the car and he's so angry because he's been cut up and he's about to punch the other guy. And it's no good going to him and saying, when your punch is 3 inches away from his face, stop. You know, it's too late.
It's too late.
The guy's angry.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't intervene when he's angry. The trick here is to stop getting angry. Okay, so why are you angry? Well, you think that he did an injustice. He cut you up. And that gave you the feeling of being angry. So I suggest that the way to stop punching people is to change your thinking about the injustice. Who gives a monkeys? The guy cut me up. Yeah. Maybe his wife's pregnant. Maybe he's an arsehole, but bless him. There's a bit in the Bible, Luke 23:34, Lord, forgive them for they know not what they do. Maybe he's poorly. Maybe something's going on. Maybe he's really struggling. Maybe he's mentally ill. But you know what? You cut me up, let it go, and breathe. And you're never going to punch anyone ever again. Make it sound easy? It takes practice. And that was the difficult bit. It takes practice. And I can tell you now, I'm not finished. I practice every day because I'm a human being. You know, when I go to bed at night, I close my eyes, and when I wake up in the morning, new day. Clock starts again. Now, hopefully, the things I did yesterday are going to help me today. But in terms of recovery, the things that I did yesterday won't help me today like that. I've got to do them again. Yeah. Yesterday's shower won't keep me clean today. Yeah. I need a new shower. Today I need to be spiritual. I need to be kind and practice kindness. Open doors for people, not cut people up. Say sorry when I've done something wrong. Do some kind things, some acts of kindness. All these things build my self-esteem and make me feel good about the world. Okay, there's death and destruction, but I've got a healthy attitude to that, which is, do I have to accept that? Yeah. Or is there something that I can do today to change it? And actually, should I change it? And once I think you begin to learn, actually, there's a lot about life that I've got to accept. Thank God for that. I don't have to start worrying about it anymore. I don't have to control the world. I don't have to tell my wife what to do. I don't have to try and eke as much out of you as I can get. Oh, God, it's so great not to think like that anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we overestimate about how much we are in control of. Right?
Yeah.
I think there's so many things where we have zero control of, and we just have to learn how to accept it.
Completely.
But then defining what to accept and what to change if we want to change, that's a difficult part of it, right?
That's the wisdom.
Yeah, that's the wisdom, yeah.
That's wisdom of being a human being. And we're all practicing. And sometimes we'll screw up. Well, then you better say sorry. And the thing about sorry, by the way, is it's an action, it's not a word. You know, you've got to offer up fruits. When you're sorry, you go and do something. Or turn up to somebody's house and say sorry. You know, and that gives you the humility. And remember not to do it again. You know, if you do something wrong and you just say, oh, forget it, you're not really going to learn anything from that. Listen, if I screw up and I've got to drive 120 kilometers to somebody's house and say sorry to the face, oh, I'm going to feel that. I'm going to remember that. Yeah. And I do that. Luckily, it doesn't happen too often. But if I have to say sorry, I will. But the whole act of trying to control the universe, gosh, it's impossible. It makes you mentally ill, funnily.
Yeah,
Makes you want to drink.
exactly.
Funnily. You know, it's not a good thing to try and do.
Yeah.
And to try and control people, places, things, and situations. Gosh, let go. I do know one person that can control all of that.
The higher power.
It's the God, it's the higher power.
Yeah.
I'm not a God. I think I should stop trying to be one.
Yeah.
I'm having enough trouble controlling my stuff, let alone all everybody else's, you know? If I can control my stuff to the best of my ability, probably have a good day.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets when it comes to your journey with addiction?
Okay. Look, there's going to be incidents where I look at that and think, gosh, I wish I'd never done that. And part of recovery, if you're a 12-step advocate, which is what I am, so the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, one of those steps is step 9, where we make amends to people and we go and clear the wreckage of the past. And I do that work with my clients, not necessarily step work, if you don't have to be a 12-step client. But I'll be teaching you about, let's clear up the wreckage of the past. All those things, let's have a really good look. That emotional archaeology, let's go and look what you said, what you did, what you didn't do. And let's ask people. Let's go and meet them. And let's offer up fruits of forgiveness. So let's clear all of that. But then let's still look back at that and say, do I regret all of that? Would I do it again? I have to say I would do it again. Now, you might think that's insane. Is it the money I missed? No. Sorry, was it the 4 suicide attempts that I missed? No. Was it the 10 years of the madness, getting arrested, ending up in a mental institution, police chases? No. I love where I am today. I love who I am today. I've got my wife today and my children in my life. I've cleared the wreckage of the past. And today I can wake up a free man. I can walk anywhere on this planet a free man. I don't owe anyone anything. I don't owe anyone an apology. And today I can try and be the best guy I can be. I will fall short because I'm a human being. And I wouldn't give up that for anything. So if I had to live that whole life again, including all the madness, I'm going to have to say yes. Because if I tried to cherry pick bits of it and say, oh, I don't think I'd end up where I am today. I'd be living a different life and it might be way worse. The life I have today I'm really grateful for, really grateful for. You know, I should be a dead man. And I should be divorced for the 3rd time. And I should, you know, the word should, it's called the tyranny of the shoulds. I shouldn't be using it.
Yeah.
But that's how it feels. I'm really, really grateful to be here today. You know, to be able to speak to you, you know, a little while ago, I didn't know you, and here we are today.
Yeah.
And we're talking about fantastic things, about the power of humanity, what it is to be a good person. And out of all the wreckage, something good can come from that. That's important to me, that. Really important, fundamentally important. You know?
It's a blessing.
And it is. There will be a day, one day I'm on my deathbed, and then I'll be thinking, how did I do? And I think I can say, do you know what, I think I did all right. I screwed up for 54 years, but since then, I've put enough action in to try and do things right. You know, I think the regrets on the deathbed, you know, people don't say on their deathbed, I think I should have worked harder. I think I should have seen less of my children. You know, on my deathbed, I think I'd like to say, given what I was dealt, I screwed up for a while, but I've tried to turn it around to the best of my ability. You know, I'm proud of who I am and proud of what I'm trying to do. It's really fundamentally important.
Yeah.
To be a free man and be proud of yourself, to have self-worth. I never had any of that for a very, very long time.
You mentioned before 4 suicide attempts. Are you okay to discuss that?
Of course,
I feel like it's a very taboo theme for a lot of people.
It's a scary topic.
Yeah.
I think it is taboo. I think it's scary because people don't understand it. And I think maybe they think, you know, it might rub off on them. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't answer for other people. I like to talk about it because it's part of my journey. So 4 suicide attempts, 3 were probably cries for help. So what I mean by that is they weren't serious, really, really serious. I won't say what I did in any of those because I don't want to give anyone the idea of what to do. I don't want to give somebody a prescription for how to try and do that. But I can tell you that one was very serious. One was extremely well planned out. And I was extremely mentally ill. It came about when I was separated from my second wife. I was living in an apartment on my own. I'd been on a 3-day cocaine binge. I had the world's biggest come down. I had psychosis. So here's a man with psychosis who decides to take his own life. That's not a well man.
Yeah.
You know? So my wife, Christina, she can't understand particularly, and of course she can't. Who can? How can you get to the point where you want to kill yourself when you've got children and loved ones? I can only say it's a measure of how mentally ill I was. That was an extremely serious attempt, and I ended up in hospital, and I was told I was 12 hours from death. I'd killed my liver. They were taking liver function tests, and I'd killed my liver with the substance that I'd taken. It was killing my liver, and the doctor said to me, David, in 12 hours' time, you're going to go to Leeds General Hospital, to the National Liver Unit. We're going to have to give you a liver transplant because your liver's dead. Let me tell you, there are not livers on shelves. If you're lucky, someone will die in a car accident, and you can get their liver. So if I were you, I would make peace with your God, I would write your will, and I would see your wife and children. And that was what I did. I didn't see my children because I couldn't face them, but I saw my first wife. And I waited. And I waited for 12 hours. And I was doing the addict's prayer. And the addict's prayer, for people who don't pray to God, they'll do the addict's prayer. And the addict's prayer is, God, I don't want to die. The other version of that is, God, I want to die.
Yeah.
So I was doing the addict's prayer, God, I don't want to die. Anyway, he never came back after 12 hours. And the next day he never came back because it was a weekend. And on the Monday morning, the doctor came round with all the junior doctors and the clipboard. And he said, hey, everybody, this is Mr. Golding. He's going home today. I said, what? Sorry, what?
Yeah.
And he said, yes, your liver's healed. And then the other junior doctors went away and he came back and he said, David, I need to tell you this. I've never seen this before. Your liver was dead and is healed in 2 days. And he said, I can only say that that's a miracle. And I left. 2 days later, cocaine, drinking. You know, that was not enough to make me stop because I was extremely mentally ill.
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned before, trying to explain to a person that don't or didn't have the disease of addiction.
Yeah.
It's very hard to understand.
Yeah, impossible.
Impossible, yeah.
Impossibly difficult. Look, I think I've read a textbook that explains to me what schizophrenia is. I don't know what it feels like to have schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And I think somebody who is having suicide ideation, somebody else might not understand that. But I can tell you, you must talk. If anyone ever has feelings of suicide, they must talk to somebody. You know, everything can be turned around. The feelings that anyone is having about suicide and ideation of suicide, speak to somebody because nobody needs to die.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to die.
Do you, when you work with your clients right now who have addictive tendencies, do a lot of them struggle with suicidal thoughts?
Some do. And I think it can be wrapped up in where they feel they are.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm a scientist, I always think in terms of graphs. You know, we slide. You know, it's a slow slide into this place that we find ourselves towards the bottom. And addiction and mental health, you know, they cross over. They overlap like a horrible Venn diagram. It's the chicken and the egg thing sometimes. Which one came first?
Yeah.
You know, did you have the addiction and then that gave you some mental health problems, or the other way around? So we often find that people with addiction, have got, you know, PTSD and childhood trauma and other events that have happened. Not everybody. So Gabor Mate talks a lot about that, about trauma. I don't believe that everyone has suffered from some trauma, but lots of people have. So I think that when we end up talking with people who are suffering from addiction, it's inevitable that you end up talking about your mental health state. Because the other thing is, by the way, that if you've been medicating yourself with alcohol for a very long time and you stop taking it, after a period of time, that's what you've got. This is you. You know, and you might find out actually that you suffer from ADHD or anxiety or depression. And that's okay, because now we can fix it.
Yeah.
It was always masked.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't know. I would rather know. You know, I would rather know if I'm suffering from something, because then I can fix it. All those years before, for 50 years, 40 years, it was being masked by alcohol. So I think it's quite common.
It's common.
But not inevitable.
Yeah.
You know, we're all different, and our paths have all been different. But another great thing to tackle. Gosh. What, to finally fix your addiction and any mental health? Amazing. Who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah.
Only maybe the people in denial.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately. So now being completely sober, alcohol-free, drug-free, how do you deal with stress? Because I feel like a lot of people, including myself when I still used to drink, I was afraid of two things.
Yeah.
Dealing with stress and dealing with social events without booze and drugs.
Okay.
How do you tackle that yourself?
Yeah, great question. Okay. Stress is a little favorite topic of mine. Okay. Because I used to use that word as an excuse to drink. So I would come home to my wife and she'd say, "How was your day?" And I'd say, "So stressful, I need a drink." Okay. So my use of the word stress was a bullshit word. Okay. So at the top, I've got this word stress. Now, it's a physical thing. It's real. Cortisol is released in our bloodstream and it affects us physically. Okay. But for me, I think I came to realize when I'd done enough work where I'd looked at the emotions that are inside me, it wasn't stress. That was a bullshit word for how I really felt, which was anxious, fearful, scared, worried, depressed, unkind, unloved, you know, all these words. So I think that over time I began to realize actually that this word stress was one part, was the explanation of maybe 20 real feelings that I was feeling.
Yeah.
So when I learned to identify the feelings, that's what I needed to tackle. So the word sort of stress, I don't particularly use stressed anymore. I might say to you today, I'm feeling really anxious. And that's okay, because sometimes I can feel anxious, but I know what to do about that. So there's this whole level deeper, which is stress for me is a bullshit word. We use it because everybody knows what that means. But also there's a stigma where people don't say, "I'm feeling really depressed today." No, they'll just say, "I feel stressed." And that's, what a shame. Should we go and get a cup of coffee? Because human beings don't very often sit down and say, "How are you feeling?" "I'm okay." No, really, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
No, I'm anxious and scared. What are you scared about? I'm scared that my wife's going to leave me. Well, let's talk about that. What they'll say is, "I'm stressed." And the other one, the social situations, which is knock yourselves out. I love going out with people. I don't need to be drunk to stand on a table and dance like an idiot, because I am an idiot. But I can keep a lid on it, by the way. It's not like I'm dancing everywhere. And it's great that my friends drink alcohol. I'm not the alcohol police. I don't want them to feel worried about it. And at the beginning, I didn't go out at all. Okay? So in early recovery, I just protected myself.
Yeah.
Because I just knew that there was a risk. Well, I just de-risked my whole life. It was 2.5 years before I went to a wedding. And it was a friend of mine that I previous weddings, I said, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to go." But this guy was a really close friend.
Yeah.
So I went to that wedding and I went home at 8 o'clock after the dinner. By then, you know, the wedding speeches and everyone had eaten. A few people are beginning to get drunk. It's time for me to go.
Yeah.
Bless you, have a great time. And told a few people that alcohol's not my friend. And that was my go-to thing. And then I went home. So my memories of the wedding were wonderful.
Yeah.
There was no chaos. There were no screw-ups. I didn't get arrested. Didn't get in a fight. I didn't fall over. I didn't rip the bride's dress or call her a name, you know.
Yeah.
It was a safe, lovely wedding where I actually look all right on the photos, you know. And I've got the memories.
Yeah.
So social situations, I did protect myself at the beginning, but now it's not a problem because I completely changed my thinking about that.
Yeah.
And you guys are okay to drink. You know, the broad spectrum of if you take 100 drinkers from 1 drink a year to full-blown alcoholic, it's 5% that have probably got an addiction problem.
Yeah.
Everybody else is on the spectrum. Well, you knock yourselves out, have a great time, because you can probably go out for 2 drinks and go home. So yeah, if I had some friends, by the way, that were big drinkers, and that was what they liked to do, I still don't see them. They're not my friends, actually. They're not my friends. You know, if you've got some friends who try and encourage you to drink, I'd suggest they're not your friends. You know, if they know that you had a problem with alcohol or drugs or gambling, and they say, hey, come on, we're going to go to the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Let's go horse racing. We can do some gambling, get drunk. No, I don't think you're my friend. No, I don't want to do that, Brian. So thanks.
Yeah.
So you've got to manage yourself. And for some people, there's that fear, actually, I'm going to lose all my social life and I'm going to be boring. And that's just not true. You've got to protect yourself at the beginning, but it isn't like that forever. It's the same as breaking your leg. Take the cast off. You're not going to go and run the London Marathon. Let's be sensible.
Yeah.
Let's just take it steadily, and then you will be able to go jogging again. This is what we're talking about. I wasn't going to go and sprint. Let's just heal for a bit first, eh? And then we can go out and do the odd jog. And then we'll see how it goes. And if it's okay, then I can start going out. But I feel safe because I always drive myself. I never rely on anybody else. I always have an exit. I always have a plan. And I always know in my mind that probably around 10 o'clock when they're getting drunk, they don't want me there anyway.
Yeah. They don't even probably think about you because, you're in a haze of alcohol and drunkenness. So
yeah. They start repeating themselves and they're a bit pissed. And I'm still talking, about quantum mechanics and they're a bit bored with me, So they don't want me there.
Great. David, would you mind sharing a bit about your new project that you're doing in Dubai? I think it's super interesting for anyone that's listening.
Bless you. Thanks for letting me talk about that. It's really special to me, this. So I'm building a day hab. Okay, so we might all understand what a rehab is, that, you're quite ill, you need some time away from your family, you need to go and live in a hospital, you might need to medically detox from alcohol, and you might be able to do some serious things. So let's imagine that you're here in Dubai. You need to go to your boss and say, I'm a cocaine addict. Can I have 28 days off, please, and go to rehab?
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't have to be Dubai, by the way, that's going to struggle with that. That's the same struggle the world over. So a day hab is where you can go at the weekends and the evening. Okay, so you don't have to share that with anybody. You can keep it to yourself. You don't need to leave your family. You don't need to ask work for a month off and all those things. So there's still a place for rehab, by the way. If you do need to medically detox, some people are going to have to do that. But for the vast majority of people, I believe that they can go to a day hab. And it's where they come to our clinic every weekend, a few evenings a week, and we do impactful change. So the things that I might talk about with private clients, we now do in the day hab. But the great thing is it's group therapy.
Okay.
So at the moment, I can only work on a one-to-one.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to do is help as many people as possible and do something different. There isn't a day hab in the UAE. It's never been done. There's a few around the world. There's probably 4 or 5 in the UK, a couple in Australia, several more in America, one in Spain. Nothing over here. And I feel that it's needed. Do I have any statistics? No. Do I have a gut feel? Yeah. And I'm an entrepreneur and I would still like to go and build something that's different, something that makes a difference. So you'll be seeing that launching probably in about 6 months. We'll get some nice premises. It's group therapy. We've got to go and finish the licensing with the Dubai Health Authority, but I don't see that there's any problem with that. And that's what I like to do. And I'm really looking forward to it. It just takes us to the next level. Takes us to the place where one of the things about recovery, it's great to do it with others. This is a thing where there's a tribe. Mm-hmm. We get a lot from social interaction. And as much as it's brilliant to get into recovery at all, and me working with a private client, they are going to be missing something if they're not in a group setting. So I do encourage my clients to go to AA meetings, for example, and they might say, I'm never doing that. And part of the reason why they might come to me is that they've already said, I'm not going to rehab and I'm not going to AA. And I say, okay, but we have the conversation. And I will still try and encourage them because I think it's a really good idea. And some of them do, some of them don't, and that's okay. But group therapy is really, really powerful. There's that hope, there's the seeing and the identification with somebody else. And the other thing about group therapy is that it's revolving. So when you all arrive, there might be somebody there who's on week 8 and week 9.
Okay.
And they get to see people ahead of them.
Yeah.
So it really is a rehab without living there.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be building.
And I guess it's nice to see people on both sides of the spectrums, right? People who are maybe more in front of you, so it gives you hope, but also people who maybe have it worse than you.
Correct.
So you don't feel as bad about your own situation.
Yeah, I think that we can all compare. We shouldn't really compare. They say that you should only compare yourself to the guy you were yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think comparison and addiction, we've got completely different lives. But you'll see that as much as there are differences, it's the similarities that are really important. And you're there. So let's say you're now on week 8. Well, now you're going to get somebody turn up on week 1. And you're going to say, gosh, I remember that. I've changed so much. Let me help you. You know, that's the whole power of recovery. The other thing is that, you know, there's another brain chemical called oxytocin. It's called the hug hormone. You know, you get that from being around people.
Yeah.
You know, when you isolate, you know, addiction is a disease of isolation. We tend to lock ourselves away, particularly if you're a drug addict or a drinker. You'll sit in the corner, lock the doors. You know, connection with other human beings. It's really fundamental and really important. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to be able to do that. Like I said, it's not been done before in the UAE. So I've got high hopes.
Yeah. Before coming and moving to Dubai, I was never here before moving in. So I had this perception that, you know, alcohol is not almost existent here. There are not so many big parties happening, but it's far from it.
Yeah.
So I feel like there is a lot of alcohol addiction happening, and especially hidden one, because there is a big prejudice against it. So I think it's a wonderful thing what you're doing.
Bless
so
you.
I'll definitely be looking out in around 6 months.
Bless you.
About the project. Yeah.
Well, you've got an invite to come and look around, and you know, you're helping me talk about that, so you're top of the list.
Thank you so much. For anyone who's listening and wants to reach out to you, just to have either a chat or actually to have your help and support as a mentor, as a recovery mentor, a sober companion, etc. Where can people find you? How can people reach out to you?
Bless you. Thanks for asking that. My website is sober.ae.
Okay.
And I'm known on the social platforms as @SoberCoachDubai. So you can do that. It's quite interesting, actually. The majority of people that get in touch with me are wives.
Oh, really? For their husbands? Or?
Correct. For their husbands. So I do work with families and wives. So even if your husband doesn't want to get into recovery, he doesn't, let's say he's in denial, but you're living in this place that's not cool, and you're struggling and you don't know what to do. You know, dealing with an addict, living with addicts is hard. I help people to do with that as well. So I can talk to the families and try and help you understand what you can and can't do. A little bit about the acceptance.
Yeah.
But yeah, so lots of wives get in touch with me and they say, you know, I've spoken to my husband, he's decided that he wants to get and do something. So that's mostly what happens, actually.
Okay, that's very good. Well, David, thank you so much for being here. Any final message to the audience?
Well, my message actually is to you, Ben, for you to invite me and put together such a fantastic podcast to talk about something that's so special and needs to be talked about. You know, it takes guts and bravery, and I commend you for that, because you're a wonderful man that's doing a wonderful thing. I have this real belief in the goodness of humanity. I believe in paying it forward. You know, if I did you a favor and you did me one back, the favor's ended. You know, if you do me one and I do it to him and him and him, it's like the passage of a coin.
Yeah.
And it just travels forever. And the ripples that move out from that, they go through time and space. You know, so the message that you're saying to people, to talk about things that are stigmatized and to talk openly about it, it moves me, makes me emotional, actually, that people here are like you. So I just want to thank you for what you've done. You are moving me, you're touching me, because the more we can talk about this, the better. You know, people are suffering, and many people don't quite know what to do, and they think it's their fault, and they are struggling. So thank you for what you've done, and thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for your kind words. I feel very blessed to get to know you, and I hope we can do this some other time again.
Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother.
Have a great day.
And you too. Thank you.
Thank you.